10 weeks into the season, Dennis hasn't managed to scrape up enough gold to cover his expenses.
I need anything I can get right now. I got some pretty big bills to pay. I'm running out of time.
Mine-hand Chase arrives for his 12-hour night shift.
If we had time on our side, which we do not have, I would take the more cautious approach.
So Dennis is going for broke.
Personally, my gut is telling me our old run coming down out of the hills is right here. And it deposited a shitload of material down here. I'm hoping. Yeah, we were absolutely not prepared to run into the permafrost. But I'm going to give it 120%. I don't pull the gold, I don't pull the gold. It won't be from a lack of trying. Just.
Hey YouTube, this video is about how to reuse gears and springs and all sorts of bits that you salvage out of devices. In most videos that I saw about salvaging parts out of devices, normally at the end of the video you will see a photo or a big bag of gears, and they will just say like, look how many gears I got out of them, and that's about it. So the first and most important thing that I think about salvaging gears and then being able to use them again is that you need to organize them. You need to have some sort of system of organizing your parts. If you just keep them in one big box and say, I have a box of gears, you'll probably never use them again and you can throw them out just to save space. So you see I have these boxes and they're all marked here, for example, 5mm. So all the gears in this bag would fit a 5mm shaft, and I have a whole bunch of shafts. If you saw the part salvage videos, then you see at the end of every video, just like everybody else, I make a photo about how many shafts I got out of this, and I keep them all, and you're gonna pretty soon understand why. But in any case, you can see I sort them all out. All the gears here are mixed, so you have gears with smaller teeth, larger teeth, all sorts of transition gears here from large to small, but the important thing is that they all fit a 5mm shaft. I have 4mm, there you go, and I have 6, and I have basically from 1 to 10, so no point in showing you all the boxes. There we go. Another thing, springs. Once you take apart 3, 4, 5 printers, you probably have enough springs to last you a lifetime, so you don't really need to save them all the time. Just make sure that you have a nice collection, and there are all sizes here, from really tiny ones that you can use just to balance something, or large ones. And pretty soon you will also see how the springs come into play in this whole business of building stuff. Another thing, a very important thing to save. First of all, clips. So all these tiny clips that come, pins that hold things together on the printer, save them all, they're very precious. Here you see a box with bits of plastic in it. It seems like plastic with no real purpose, but this is one of the most important things that you need to save when you're planning on reusing shafts and gears. And these bits of plastic are basically your bearings. Inside all devices that you can purchase for home use or office use, these are used as the bearings. If you just take the metal shaft and you want it to rotate and you put it on a metal frame, it will grind together, so you have to have these. And you need to remember that these are just bits of plastic. So the fact that it has this shape doesn't mean that I'm going to use it at this shape. If it fits whatever I'm trying to make, then it will fit it. But if not, I can always cut it, I can always sand it down to size, I can change it, I can even cut it in half and then encase the shaft and close it. and just use your imagination. It's just plastic, and it's the most important part that you need to save. I also save, for example, these sort of things, so they will hold a shaft in place, or they will put some pressure on it, so you just need to attach it on one end, for example, and the other end will be fastened with this. And you can see here other examples. So this bag is all about these sort of things. So here we go. Don't know if the camera focuses, but you see this part. So here there will be a spring, and this can hold a shaft in place, or just put pressure on something, or it can even act as a stopper for a gear. So just if it engages like that, it will stop a gear. You can drill a hole through it, you can put a shaft on it, you can make it do a movement as such. And if you add another bit of plastic here and you put a solenoid, then you already got yourself another mechanical movement. So again, plastic, just need to use your imagination. This doesn't go here. And that was it about how to organize your materials and how to make sure that you have them available for your projects. Gears are very important. You already know it. Everything like cameras, scanners, printers, they all run on gears. Just gonna show you how to reuse them. So the idea is basically to copy what the way that the manufacturer does it. And you can see here original piece of metal that came out of a printer, and we have these two shafts that are attached here, and they're just punched into place, and they sit tight here. You can't really remove them. You can saw them off, but then you need to make a really nice cut for it. So we're going to replicate the same idea just like I did here. So we have these two pins, and they're just super glued onto this piece of metal, and I created a nice gear train. And the way we do that is all the shafts that we save. I have a little bag here, and a colleague of mine, kindly enough, he took the shafts and he cut them for me on a lathe, and just nice pieces of 20 millimeters, and he made this groove here so I can fit the clips that we talked about earlier, that hold everything into place. And if the shaft is smaller or it is loose here, then you use a spring just like you see here, and that's how it all fits into place. That's why it's important to save the shafts. You don't need a lathe to get these done, but you do need a saw that you can make a nice clean cut here and then just work it. But this is what you want to achieve. And then, as I said, I just super glued it to this thing, and obviously with super glue it won't hold that much forces, but just to experiment it's nice. And if you want to have something more permanent, then you can put the shaft on something like a hole. You can drill a hole inside the metal or wood or whatever. If it's wood, then you need to also drill a hole inside the shaft so that you can make a screw, so that will be more complicated. But with metal it's very easy. You make a hole, you put the shaft, and then you solder the inside of the hole to the shaft itself, and that will hold it in place quite strong. So for every application that you have strong forces working on the wheel and you need something more than super glue or 2 compound glue, which is also very strong, then you can just solder them together. And that's the whole idea. We've basically managed to replicate exactly what the manufacturer does. And by having these, all sorts of sizes, so 5 millimeter for example, and you saw how many 5 millimeter gears I have, so I can just go wild with whatever I want to build. This was how to actually utilize them. So you need to cut the shafts and you need to sort out your gears, and then you can make whatever you want out of them. If you want to fit a gear on a salvage motor, any device that you take apart, a home device or small office device, they will have a plastic shaft. Didn't come across a metal shaft yet, only in large machines, but you won't be doing that at home probably. But also with metal, it's the same idea. If you want to fit a gear on it and the gear doesn't fit, maybe the gear itself is too small and you need to take some of the material here off. The easiest way, you plug the motor into just give it like 6, 12 volts, whatever the motor takes. It will start to spin, and then you take a piece of sanding paper, put it on a flat surface, and gently you need to put the motor parallel, and you just start grinding off material, and every time seeing that the gear fit. Once the gear fits, you add a bit of super glue and it will stay in place. So that's pretty easy. Yeah, so gear configurations, it's something that really, you have tons of gear configurations. By the way, I have the script here this time, so I'm reading out of the script, so I'm sorry for that. But this configuration, for example, and I hope that the camera will zoom in this time, or maybe not. There we go. Zoom in. No, it doesn't work. Okay, well, anyway, here we have a large gear and we have here a smaller gear, and what this one does, at the bottom it has teeth, but in the middle it has a blank section, and then it has 1/6, I believe, of the gear it has teeth. So that means that whenever this one does a full rotation, it will move this gear just a little bit. So this is an example of a gear configuration. You can just play with all the gears. When it comes to gears, you have ones with larger teeth, smaller teeth, teeth at an angle, and the important thing you want to make sure is that the gears that you're matching, that grind with each other, they need to mesh almost perfectly. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be near perfect. The less perfect it is, the more noise the gear will make, because the teeth will be like knocking with one another, and eventually, if there's also some strong forces working on it, then the wheel will simply break in time. So you want to get a nice mesh, and when you have a nice collection of gears, then you will always find matching sets and use them. Just to show you the way that it's built. So here we have a spring. This spring, I'm sure if you took apart stuff, you know what this one is. It's like a spring, and it has these two things here, and this holds the gear in place, and I just took it apart. Here I just used a rubber band which fit nice and tight, and it held everything together. I can just take it off, and here we have the spring. The spring will always holds the gears in place so that they don't move around, because you see. And here we have the two pieces of shaft that I glued, and you can see that I can just take them off, and that's it. And if I want to glue them in a different configuration, then again, just this super glue that you buy at the store, and you can just make a new configuration and always reuse it. And again, once you want it to be permanent, just solder it into place. You need a hot iron, maybe something like 160, 200 watts, and it will get the job done. And let's see, well, that was about it. So you need to have imagination for this. Just to show you, yeah, it's a piece of metal. I made this to make a point on how you can like reuse the gears, and I didn't do almost any sort of fabrication here. aside from this one gear that I've cut here, it was too long, so I've cut it and then I fitted it onto here. But just to show you, so here there is a pin which holds everything together, and I take out the pin, and there is a spring. Obviously the spring holds everything tight in place, so we took that apart. This piece of metal just had a hole. It had this hole here, and the shaft itself, the 6mm shaft, you can see doesn't really fit here, so the gear would go like that. And that's why I took two other gears. Don't really use them as gears, just as, well, I don't know how you call it, but this one had a perfect 7mm fit for this one, and basically the piece of metal is attached in between. So I don't know how to really explain this to you, but this is the way it goes. And this gear, we have this metal pin, again this clip here that holds it in place on one end. Here, to make the gear with the metal, I just drilled 4 holes. You can see the 4 holes here, and I stringed it together just to hold it in place. It's free, but once it locks into place, then it's part of the mount. This was the mount, and you can see it's just a bent piece of metal. Just took it and bent it. Here we have original pins that were used for gears on the printer. These pieces of metal come from an HP printer, and the motor comes from the Canon printer, and these gears come from the laser printer. And here we have the one gear that I actually glued into place. So we have again a spring and a clip, and we remove the gear from its position, and here you can see that originally this whole structure was going like that. So the gear, the pin, I couldn't really glue it, so I just took a piece of metal, cut it, glued the pin to it, and then, well, I made sure that it fits the gear and just glued it together. And this is just a motor. It had a gear on it which already fit these meshed gears, so these are a pairing match. When you take apart gears, there is grease inside. Don't bother with trying to clean up the grease, just wipe it off somehow and store it in plastic bags. And once you want to use actual gears and you have decided that you're going to use them in your project and you don't want to get dirty, then just use some degreaser like WD-40 or kitchen degreaser. Clean all the grease, wash it, and then you can use it and it won't be dirty anymore. That's why I'm also using this plastic here. But just to take apart the motor very easily, if I had the right, there we go. So just to show you the piece of metal, the reason I chose this piece of metal, which was just a random one, was simply because it had the motor mount here ready, so I didn't need to take any other piece of metal and like drill holes. So that's it, that's the piece of junk metal. It used to sit on the side of the printer. Here was an original pin which was in the way. You can't really yank it out, don't try it, you'll just bend everything here. Just sawed it off using my Dremel tool and grinded it a little bit, and then I stuck my shaft here which fitted better, and that's it. That's the whole 360 degrees camera mount that made out of junk. And that was just basically, I made it in an hour to show you the things that you can make with all this scrap without even putting any sort of work into it or doing something like that. I hope I covered everything. I made a script. I don't. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to answer. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And in the future, I'm gonna make a video on how to use these things. So again, it's a gear, but this gear comes with the encoder strip on it. And these are very nice if you want to get a position of a shaft or a gear or something that is rotating around. And this one is a 3 millimeter fit, sorry. And here we have a shaft. So by cutting the shaft and fitting this, and then using the sensor, just super glue the whole thing or hot glue it, whatever. And I'm going to show you how it works using the Arduino, but that's for next time. In any case, I hope you liked this video and that it taught you something about this whole, I don't know, hobby of building stuff out of scrap. And that's it. See you in the next time. Thanks for watching.